She signed the divorce papers with shaking hands. Tears ran down her face, but she didn't wipe them. Her husband sat beside her, silent. His mother stood across the table, cold and proud. "I told you this wouldn't last," the mother said sharply. The black woman looked at the man she loved. "Say something," her voice cracked. But he didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even look her in the eyes. Her heart broke. She had nothing left. No one stood up for her. No one believed in her. And now, she was being thrown away like she never mattered. She stood up, holding her pride even though her body felt weak. She walked out of the house with no money, no jewelry, no car, just her small bag and her dignity. People in the town whispered. She thought she was something, they said. Trying to marry rich. She's gone now, others said. Good for them. But they didn't know the truth. They didn't know her story. They didn't know who her father really was. And she never told them. She moved far away, changed her name, found peace in silence. But 2 years later, she came back. Not to beg, not to cry, but to show them who she truly was. And the truth shook their world. 2 years earlier, when she first met him, everything felt like a dream. He was kind, handsome, and came from a wealthy family. She didn't care about his money. She fell in love with his heart, at least the part he showed her. He took her to fancy restaurants, gave her flowers, and looked at her like she was the only woman in the world. He said she made him feel alive. He said he didn't care what anyone thought. So when he asked her to marry him, she said yes. But his mother never liked her. From the first moment they met, his mother gave her cold stares. She always spoke with a sharp tongue. "Where's your family from?" she asked once, pretending to smile. "Do they even have land in their name?" She laughed awkwardly and tried to be polite. She tried to win her over. She helped in the kitchen, cleaned up after events, dressed modestly, and smiled through the insults. But no matter what she did, it was never enough. After the wedding, things got worse. His mother visited often, giving orders like she owned the house, and her husband, he never told his mother to stop. He never stood between them. Slowly, she began to feel invisible in her own home. And then, one evening, everything changed. She came home to find her suitcase already packed, divorce papers on the table, his mother sitting in the chair like a queen, with her son standing by her side, quiet and distant. "She's not the right one for this family," the mother said calmly, and just like that, she was forced to sign. She left that night, not just heartbroken, but ashamed. She didn't want to go back to her friends. She didn't want anyone to see her like that. So she disappeared. No phone calls, no texts, no trace. She went to a quiet town far away, rented a small room, found a job at a library. For a while, she said nothing about her past, until one day, the truth began to rise. The truth about who she really was. And what her silence was hiding. She had always known her father was wealthy, but she never told anyone. He was a quiet man who didn't like to show off. He had built a fortune in silence: real estate, tech investments, gold reserves in 3 countries. But he raised her to be humble. He taught her to live simply, speak kindly, and never depend on anyone's money, not even his. When she fell in love, he warned her gently, "If a man cannot protect you without knowing who I am, then he never truly loved you." She understood. That's why she kept her father's identity hidden when she met her husband's family. She wanted to be loved for who she was, not what she had. So she wore simple clothes. She drove her own small car. She never mentioned the private jet or the estates or the offshore accounts. She lived like a regular woman. But when she left the marriage, her father found out everything. He was quiet at first. Then he looked her in the eye and said, "Now let's remind them who you are." It began slowly. He sent her to the best school in Europe for business. She graduated top of her class. Then he handed her one of his companies to manage. She grew it faster than anyone expected. People started talking. "Who is this woman?" they asked. She came out of nowhere. But she didn't speak to the media. She didn't attend parties. She just worked, built, and stayed quiet. Until the day she got an invitation to the same high society event her ex-husband's family would attend. Her father asked, "Are you ready?" She nodded. That night, she wore a gold dress designed by a private Paris designer. Her name was now on the Forbes Young Power list. She arrived not as the broken wife they once rejected, but as a woman reborn, with dignity, strength, and silent fire. The room stopped when she walked in. People stared. Some whispered, but no one could say a word to her face. And when she came face to face with her ex-husband and his mother, she smiled politely and said only 5 words. "Good evening. How's the family?" His mother froze. Her confident smile faded. She looked at the young black woman in front of her, stunned. This was not the same girl she once insulted and forced out of her son's life. This woman looked powerful, calm, unshaken. Her dress shimmered under the lights. Her posture was perfect. Her eyes held strength, not anger, not pain, just quiet strength. The ex-husband looked like he'd seen a ghost. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. His eyes dropped to the floor, unable to meet hers. People at the event began to whisper, "Is that her? She's the one they pushed away. But look at her now." They didn't know the half of it. A top investor approached her. "Ma'am, the board is waiting for your decision on the merger," he said respectfully. Her ex's mother's eyes widened. She suddenly realized who she was standing in front of. This woman wasn't just rich, she was powerful. Her father soon walked in, dressed in a tailored black suit, silver beard, and calm eyes. He shook hands with presidents and kings. But when he reached her, he kissed her forehead and said, "You did well, my daughter." It was then that the ex-husband knew. He had made the biggest mistake of his life. He had chosen silence over love, pride over protection. He let his mother ruin what could have been the best thing in his life. Now that same woman stood in front of him, out of his reach, out of his league, and out of his life. He wanted to speak, to explain, to ask for forgiveness. But she didn't need an apology. She already had everything. She looked at him one last time, smiled gently, and walked away, leaving behind silence, shock, and a lesson none of them would ever forget. The days after that event were filled with whispers and headlines. Social media exploded with photos of her standing beside billionaires, signing deals, and giving speeches at powerful summits. Articles began to surface. The ex-wife they tried to erase is now the boss of the empire. From humiliation to honor, her quiet rise to power. But she didn't care for the noise. She wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. She had already healed. Still, deep down, she remembered the night she walked away. The pain, the silence, the look on her husband's face as he stood there doing nothing. That memory would never leave her. But now, it no longer controlled her. She had found her voice, not by shouting, but by rising. She began funding scholarships for girls like her, girls who were told they weren't enough. She opened a shelter for women who had been cast aside like she once was. She didn't talk much about her past. She let her actions speak. But one day, a letter arrived. It was from him, her ex-husband. He said he was sorry. He said he had been a coward, that he let his mother decide his future, that he regretted every moment of silence. He asked if they could meet. She sat quietly for a while. Then she folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. She didn't hate him. She didn't wish him pain. But she also knew some things are not meant to return. She had grown. She had become something greater, not because of revenge, but because of grace. She had loved deeply, lost painfully, but rose beautifully. And sometimes that's the best answer to betrayal, becoming everything they said you could never be. Months passed. Her name now carried weight in rooms that once shut her out. Governments called her for advice. Billionaires offered her partnerships. Schools invited her to speak. But she never bragged. She still woke up early, still made her own tea, still walked barefoot in her garden. She never forgot where she came from, and she never forgot what she went through. One evening, while attending a business forum in South Africa, she was asked to speak about her journey. The room was full. Cameras were rolling. Big names sat in the front row. She stood up, smiled, and began. "I was once told I wasn't good enough, that I didn't belong, that I should leave quietly and never look back. And I did leave, but I came back. Not for revenge, but because I had a reason to rise." She paused. The room was silent. Pain teaches you things comfort never can, and rejection, sometimes it's just redirection. I lost a husband, but I found myself. Tears filled the eyes of many. Even grown men looked down, wiping their faces. She wasn't just talking. She was reaching hearts. After the speech, an older woman walked up to her. She held her hand and said, "You just gave me the courage to walk away from someone who never saw my worth." That's when she knew her story had a purpose. It wasn't just about money, power, or proving people wrong. It was about healing others with the truth of her journey. And for her, that was everything. She returned to her hotel room that night, sat by the window, and looked out at the stars. So many thoughts ran through her mind. She remembered the small apartment she hid in after the divorce, the nights she cried alone, the way people judged her without knowing anything. She remembered how she almost gave up, how she told herself maybe love just wasn't for her. But now, she was stronger, wiser, and full of peace. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. It simply said, "I saw your speech. I'm proud of you." She paused for a moment, unsure who it was. Then another message came. "I was wrong. You didn't deserve what happened. I hope you find someone who sees you, truly sees you." She knew who it was, her ex-husband. But this time, she didn't feel pain. She didn't feel anger. She just felt free. She smiled softly and turned off her phone. That chapter was closed. The next morning, her team brought her a folder, a new project in Kenya, building schools and tech centers for young girls. She signed the deal immediately. Her life now had meaning beyond her past. She wasn't just living, she was leading. She was no longer someone's ex-wife. She was a voice, a builder, a light. And nothing, not shame, betrayal, or silence, could ever take that from her again. Years later, people still told her story. Not just because of the money she made, not just because of the companies she led, but because of how she carried herself. She never once spoke badly about her ex-husband or his mother, not in interviews, not in private. She believed dignity wasn't just about power, it was about restraint. She taught young girls to know their worth. She told them, if someone leaves you because they don't see your value, let them go. Your value doesn't disappear because someone else is blind. She built a center called The Quiet Rise, a place for women healing from deep heartbreak. Women came there not just to rest, but to rebuild. Some cried the moment they entered. Some laughed for the first time in years. And every time she saw one of them walk out stronger, she felt her own heart grow lighter. One afternoon, while sitting with a young girl who had just left an abusive relationship, the girl asked, "How did you survive?" She looked at her gently and said, "I didn't survive. I grew. And sometimes growth hurts more than pain." The girl nodded, tears in her eyes. That moment was more powerful than any deal she ever signed. Because that was her true victory. Not the money, not the headlines, but the fact that she turned her deepest pain into something beautiful, something that helped others heal. And in doing so, she became unstoppable. One day, while walking through a quiet airport lounge, she heard someone call her name. She turned around slowly. It was her ex-husband. He looked older, tired. His clothes were neat, but his eyes carried the weight of regret. He took a few steps closer, but kept his distance. "I didn't expect to see you here," he said softly. She nodded. "Neither did I." There was a long pause. "I just wanted to say, I was weak. I let my mother control me. I let fear make my choices." She listened silently. "I thought money, family pressure, and tradition were more important. But now I know I lost the best part of my life because I didn't have the courage to protect it." He looked down, then back at her. "You don't have to forgive me. I just wanted to tell you. I see it now. I see you now." She took a deep breath. Her voice was calm. "I forgave you a long time ago, but I also let go. I don't need your apology, but I appreciate it." She looked him in the eyes. "I hope you find peace. I really do." He smiled faintly. "You already have, haven't you?" She smiled gently. "Yes, I have." Then she turned, walked away, and boarded her plane. No tears, no anger, just peace. Because sometimes the strongest kind of closure is not needing revenge or even a second chance. It's walking away with your head high and never looking back. She looked out the plane window as it took off. The clouds rose beneath her, soft and endless. Her reflection stared back, calm, whole, and free. She thought about everything she had been through, the love, the betrayal, the silence, the shame, and then the growth, the power, the healing. She had loved deeply. She had fallen hard, but she got back up stronger, not with revenge, not with bitterness, but with quiet strength and a clear purpose. They had tried to break her, to erase her, to silence her, but they forgot one thing. Diamonds are made under pressure. She was no longer just the girl they divorced. She had become a name, a force, a light for others. A story people would tell, not because of how she was hurt, but because of how she rose. And that's the message. Your worth is not defined by how people treat you. It's defined by how you rise after they try to destroy you. Walk away if you must. Let go if you have to. But never forget this. Your story isn't over when they leave, it's only just beginning. So rise, quietly if you must, but rise.